Hello and welcome. Today we study the street scene, basic model for an epic theatre, which is a reading, an essay by Bertolt Brecht, and this is about his theories of epic theatre. And he creates, if you know about Brecht, you would also know that Brecht was a great theorist of theatre also, and this whole idea of revolutionary theatre, which 20th century, at least the mid 20th century authors picked up from, was from this idea of epic theatre. Now, in my previous video, I've talked about what epic theatre is. So I would just give a brief of what epic theatre would be, although you can look at the earlier video. Epic and theatre, although people say that it could be a dichotomy, this could be two different things put together, but for Brecht, epic theatre is something which is like a revolutionary theatre, which makes people learn from it, which is also a lot about what we see in our everyday life, and where even if you pick up one section of a drama, it would be an independent section on its own, and you would have something to learn from, even from a very small independent section of the play. And if you look at some of Brecht's plays, you would see that the whole idea of epic theatre does resonate with some of his plays. Now, this essay is easily available on the internet. I would also share this link for people who actually want to read this essay. So let me talk about what the street scene is. So the premise of this essay is that theatre should be somewhat minimalist, and it should break away from the assumption that audience don't know that it's a play, right? If you know, this was a dominant theory of theatre in early 20th century, and many theorists of theatre at that point, like August Strindberg or Stanislavski. Incidentally, these are all readings for people whoever wants to study European drama. You would be reading Strindberg, you would be reading Stanislavski, and you would notice that these people propose that drama should be similar to real life, and they always argued that if you're watching drama, it should feel like you are you're watching something real, right? So Stanislavski brought this whole concept of making very, very realistic kind of theatre. Now, Brecht was coming a little later, right? Brecht was living during the Second World War, right? So Brecht was in a way breaking away from this tradition. He was breaking away from this myth. So he argues that theatre should be minimalist, and we should not pretend that the stage is real life, right? So this is how he moved away from the earlier theorists of European theatre. So he says that what is the street scene? For instance, on a street, if you see that there's an accident, and there are many eyewitnesses of this accident. Now, whenever such a thing happens anywhere in the world, people become curious about, okay, how did this happen? What happened? What really made such a damage happen? So now imagine that one accident has already taken place, some damage is done, the accident is now cleared, the road is now clear, but people want to know what exactly happened, right? Now, this eyewitness is acting out whatever he saw to people who become curious about the accident. So now there's a bystander who just saw what happened, and people who are curious go to that person and say, okay, what happened? And this bystander, this person who is the witness to the accident, he becomes the demonstrator. He is the single demonstrator or the actor, and he plays all the parts to show whatever he saw, right? So he would act like the driver, he would also act like the victim, he would also in a way show the clash of two vehicles, whatever he wants to do, just to demonstrate that this is how the accident took place. Now he would act as he would take part in the whole drama and be the single demonstrator of it. But people watching him know that he's acting and that he's recreating a scene for them, and no one has to really pretend that, okay, this is actually really happening right now, right? Now, even if people who are watching him act do not completely believe him or do not completely agree with his account, they all are free to interpret the accident. So for instance, if there's somebody acting out, if there's somebody saying, okay, this is how the accident took place, and I'm thinking, oh, maybe he's exaggerating, maybe the car wasn't so fast, or maybe it wasn't all because of the fault of the driver, or whatever I would want to imagine, I am free to imagine that, right? Because this act is very minimalist. Now, Brecht in the street scene says, and this is a quotation from the essay, he says, the actor has to avoid presenting himself in such a way that someone calls out, what a lifelike portrayal of the chauffeur. He must not cast a spell over anyone. He should not transport people from normality to higher realms. He need not dispose of any special powers of suggestion, which basically means that the actor doesn't have to do something so outlandish that people feel, oh, this is so real, maybe this is he is the chauffeur, right? People are not supposed to believe in him like that, okay? And the fact that everyone is drawing their own lesson, their own interpretation from this basic model of theatre is very important, right? Now, this is not to say that epic theatre is always minimalist. You would find songs in epic theatre, right? If you know The Good Person of Szechuan, you would know that you have songs in that play, but it is still epic theatre because there is some complexity in the way it is constructed. You may have elaborate makeup of the characters, for instance, but everybody is drawing their own meaning. Everybody is drawing their own understanding, their own interpretation from this epic theatre, right? And that's the key in epic theatre. Now, I've also mentioned in the previous video that epic theatre was also very entertaining. It was not supposed to be all mundane, boring political theatre. So don't be of the view that epic theatre is just boring political theatre. It is much more. And that's the reason Brecht calls it the street scene, the basic model of epic theatre, because here the key element is there. Like the actor is just giving you a demonstrator of how things happen, but the viewer can interpret it however he or she wants to interpret, and the viewers also know that it's just another dramatization of one incident, right? They are not thinking that it's real life, okay? And the idea remains the same. You can alter your performance. The audience can think of itself as being a part of the narrative. You are an active part of the narrative, and mainly the audience is not to assume that this is lifelike, and you're constantly made aware that you're actually watching a performance. So one other element of the epic theatre is that you constantly keep breaking the fourth wall and continue to speak to the audience in one way or another. Okay, so this is what the basic model of epic theatre is. If you want to read the entire play, this reading, the link would be shared with this video. You should be reading the entire this reading. It's actually a translation, and it would not be very difficult for you to read and understand. Thank you. For more such videos, please write to me and tell me what you would really like to study from. I'll see you again. Thank you.